Welcome back, everybody, to the Autism Exchange podcast, where we want to communicate and we want to collaborate. We want to foster real conversation in a very fun way that we hope lands somewhere in your airport. This is an approach where we try not to plan very much. We try not to structure very much. We want to just talk. And from that, we have been very thankful that many, many people have gleaned some very, very interesting things from it. So we're excited. Welcome back. And we're going to rock and roll today with Janice and I doing a little bit of goofing, doing a little bit of thinking, and see where it takes us. As usual, we have no idea. Janice, hi.
Hi, good morning. How are you doing?
Well, if I was a cat, I'd be purring.
Okay, I gotta get ready for these. I'm like in the airport, by the way, the airport analogy, and thinking, we're going to take off this morning, and I think we're going to start off on the runway with maybe like one of those little prop planes, and eventually we're going to get to where we're in like some sort of jet that can go, a little further. So, but yeah, everything is good. Everything's good this morning.
Awesome. That reminds me of somebody that told me this analogy one time about, I think he was talking about small business ownership, but he said it's like a speedboat versus a cruise ship. So a big corporate entity has to stay on the main path. They can't deviate very quickly and return back to wherever they were. And we like being a speedboat where we can just kind of zoom, 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 zoom all over the place and maybe eventually get back to where we wanted to be. Or if not, at least we're quick enough to run away from sharks,
Right. Or find someplace new and that nobody's ever been to before, because I couldn't sort of like turn on a dime. So
Exactly.
I like that. I like the speedboat idea, because that really does sort of, I like the idea of zipping around and like, oh, that looks good. Let's go over there. That looks interesting. It's like a squirrel brain, but with a motor.
Welcome to my life. that is me.
Yeah. So, well, actually, okay. So I had a few things I wanted to ask you about today, if that's okay.
Yeah.
First, I want to mention that our last guest, Stacy, amazing. I so enjoyed listening to her and talking with her. I thought she was incredible, and I'm wishing that I had teachers like that throughout Caroline's educational career, and maybe mine too. She's just amazing.
She is. I sent her a text though, I guess the night of the day we recorded it. Yeah. And I said, look, I've said a lot of nice things about you in the last 4 or 5 hours. And so I'm going to say one more nice thing and then I'm done. So don't expect anything kind from me for a little bit. You're great. You're awesome. And I think I told her I was really proud. So yeah, she, I don't know, everybody that's come on has embodied some idea or concept that the people that I have personally known and the people that I haven't personally known who have been guests here, I still was surprised. I think we have a thought in our, like an idea about maybe what they stand for or how they're going to paint this picture. And I've been wrong in a good way. And Stacy's no example. I mean, I mean, we split it down into particles, but my term is tough love. That tough love thing, she has it down pat. I think anybody that says tough love can go too far in either direction. I don't think there's not too much love, but you know what I'm saying.
I do. Yeah.
And
I do.
she kind of perfectly embodies that tough love thing with accountability and expecting the best. It was super good. I was really proud of her.
Yeah, I thought that I loved her talking about the high expectations, and she really explained what that meant across, for herself, for her students, and even for the families of the students that she works with. And I loved that she was, it's like high expectations. It was sort of like a non-negotiable, but then it was, I'm going to help you get there. I'm going to work to help you get there. Whatever I need to do creatively, professionally, I'm going to make this happen. And I thought, and when she talked about the home visits that she does a couple times a year, and sort of that brought me back to Dr. Grubbs. And when she was talking about families and sort of seeing a family when they come in and seeing where they are and what they're looking for. And it really pulled together so many things. And when you ask, who are you, when you see patients for the first time, and it just brought so much together about the collection of people who we've been lucky enough to have on the podcast, um, there are a lot of similarities and overlap, and yet they all say it like in a different language. So it's sort of like we're all talking about the same topic or the same thing, but everybody has their own language to be able to get to it. And I just love listening to people and their thought process of how they think about what they're doing and how they deal it so exquisitely and excellently, like uniquely. They find a way to make it theirs, and it's great.
It is great, and it kind of reminds me of people watching, except for it's people talking, because
Right.
you and I both like people, and we like to. I don't know. When a family comes in here to the office and I meet them for the first time, it's not unusual. I mean, we get to work, right? We do what we're supposed to do, and then if there's a minute toward the end, then I'm going to look at mom or dad and be like, "What do you do?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I
Mhm.
work for the road department." "Oh, cool. What's that mean?" Like, what do you drive
Right.
equipment? What kinds of gravel are there? Like what size is best to put under asphalt? That sort of just goofy stuff. But I think you and I both really just inquisitive about people and their experience and their home and their country. Da-da.
Ta-da.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot
Yeah.
like people
It's
watching,
great.
but people talking. And like I said earlier, the the surprise of how somebody brings their approach to the table, if that makes any sense at all. So
It makes 100% sense. And I think I'm nervous a lot about asking, thinking I'm prying, but the opposite is true. People are really delighted to be able to share something about themselves. I'm like, thank you for taking interest in me. Yeah, this is what I do. This is important to me. So asking just one question beyond, hi, how are you? Where it's the pat answer of, fine, thanks, how are you? Uh,
I'm not very
Asking
good at
just
those.
something else. But I go, yes, you are. Yes, you are. You either that or you have something about like cat spitting or something. I don't know. But you say something that sort of like breaks down whatever, sort of reservation there is. And I'm delighted by that. I love talking to people. You just ask one more question and it just opens up, and somebody opens up, and they're so happy that somebody, I think, is asking them about them rather than just sort of the mundane. And so, yeah, I like doing that. I have to remember to do that. And I try to have the luxury of time to do that so that I'm not in a rush. I'll do that sometimes in the grocery store. There's somebody behind me, and you can tell they're in a little bit of a hurry, and I am not. It's just going home to unpack the groceries and let out the dog. And it's just, so I'll say, oh, do you want to go ahead? Why don't you go ahead? I'm not in that much of a hurry. And you'd be surprised. Or maybe it wouldn't be, I don't know, how happy that makes me. It's like, because you know that it's like a paying it forward sort of thing where you can do something that is, you hope, a nice gesture that maybe that will stay with that person for the rest of the day or whatever, 5 minutes, who knows. And maybe, that'll change a little tiny thing, that choice that they make. But it's like those kinds of things that make me think back to Stacy and Dr. Grubbs and Kirsten. The little things that they do that have had such an impact that they don't even realize that they're doing.
Yeah. And you said Dr. Grubbs again. I meant to touch on that.
Yep.
That happened. Your thought about the connection between Stacy and Dr. Grubbs in terms of how they gauge where somebody is and try to meet them there, and then say,
Mm-hmm.
"All right, I have a job to do. Here are my skills. Let me help you push toward whatever you need to push toward." But that part of, you can't say sizing somebody up because that's judgmental, but finding out who somebody is or who a family is, Dr. Grubbs is really, really good at that. Really, really. I mean, all of these people are, but that's really cool. And then the other thing I thought was funny, I re-listened prior to publishing Stacy's episode, and at the end, I realized neither one of us, you or I, did not want that to end. Like, it was so fun and good and great, and we had so much.
Yeah.
So I realized we tried to sign off like 3 times, and on the last one, you go back and listen to it. On the last one, Stacy was like, "Well, it's good to be here again." Like
She did.
for the 50th
She
time.
did.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. and
I've got stuff to do.
I'll tell you what, though, that was really I think, indicative of how good that was. And people don't know,
Yeah.
listeners don't realize that you and I, this is fun for us, how much fun this is for us, because we've said it a million times. Our goal is not, let's figure out how to make money. Let's figure out how to sell ads. Let's figure out how to get this number of subscribers,
Yeah.
and because of that, all that means is that you and I are here because it fills our hearts in a way, like it fills some kind of gap or void, and it's so much fun. And we both have talked about how much we look forward to this. But then you get into a conversation, as we have with all of our guests. We don't want to get off the air with any of them. But it was just funny with Stacy. You and I both, I think, accidentally were trying to just stretch it out a little bit more, because it's like, it's so good. We don't want to quit. This is so much fun. And then at the end, I realized what was going on. I'm like, daggone it, we got to quit. So
I know.
that
It
was
was a bummer because I had a whole list.
I know. Well, and I felt bad about that too. I had my list, and you have yet, I think, on the record to say, Michael, shut up. I want to talk. but I think what happens is I just get so excited about what I write down as we go, and I'm like, oh, I gotta ask. The other part is I'll forget. Like if I don't ask it in that moment, then it's gone. Even if I make a list, I'll forget to read it. But
I know. And then I look for like an inroad to be able to bring it up sometimes, to like make my own segue, which doesn't always work. Sometimes it's just like, Janice, that's left field. That's terminal B. Like we're in terminal A, like cut it out.
But see, that's also a very funny difference between you and I, because you're thoughtful in that way. And I'm like, hang on, I know we were talking about rice, but can we stop for a second and talk about water? Because what's the buoyancy of salt water? And there is no segue. And I don't just, it's funny. We're in that regard, we're wildly different.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think I love that about us, because I'm learning from you how to be a little bit more sort of like
an idiot.
I think that's, no. I think that surprise and that sort of spontaneity is fun for our guests too, because it's not canned answers. Like we literally show up with the person's name and we're like, okay, let's talk.
Who are you?
Like there's nothing there is nothing going on. So I think that's really fun. And I agree. Like we really are not doing this with any intention of anything outside of being able to have a conversation and highlight people that we think are amazing. That's pretty much it. Like there's no other compensation that we're looking for, and which is why we're incredibly grateful to the people who help us, namely Kirsten. She's amazing at helping us behind the scenes and probably in front of the scenes too. And I just that I think that's what it is. It's like this triangle or quadrangle of you and me and the guest, and then Kirsten helping us out. And that's kind of it. There's no ulterior motive. And I think that's what makes it so much fun. There's no pressure. There's no expectation. I mean, we don't want to upset our guests at all, but I mean, I think if that's the expectation we have, is just, don't upset anybody. I think there's a lot of room for fun.
Yeah. 2 points there. Like I said before, I forget them. One, is the look on someone's face, and I'm guessing you've probably encountered this too, when pull back the curtain. You and I don't always meet somebody together and say, hey, we would like for you to come on the podcast, and whatever. You do it and then I do it, and then we kind of come back in the middle. It was just yesterday I sent you a text and I said, sorry if I jumped the gun, but found somebody that was eager and they would be perfect. Sorry about it. They're coming. And when I ask them, I want to know if you've seen this too. When I ask people if they want to come join and they say yes, and then they say, so how do I prepare? What are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Their faces are like, huh? What? And then I explain, and it's never, it's never like, hey, you want to come join us? Yes, I would love to. It always becomes something like, hey, do you want to come join us? Sure. What are we going to do? I don't know. Oh. So then I have to explain, like we're intentional about not planting certain seeds so that it grows into what we want it to be.
Exactly. And yeah.
Item 2 is, I think when we were talking, I guess it was yesterday, or you and Kirsten were talking, I was just reading the messages as they went, but the titles for her, I do want to give her, she's my wife and she's perfect. selfishly, I want to give her some kudos, but I think we should give her flowers for all that she's done, whether or not she were my wife. You know how well in her episode we talked about her marketing background, and she's got really
Mhm.
cool, great skills, and um, she's bringing that very humbly, I think, to us, and is another like-minded person to the approach of what we're trying to accomplish here. And I know Kirsten's heart is to try to help other people. If there's anything we can talk about that is difficult or funny or easy, if it gives parents a little bit of respite from worried about all the things that a parent of a child with autism or a developmental disability, if there's anything that gives them a little respite, Kirsten is kind of a gold mine of giving us feedback. I think you guys should do this. I think maybe you guys should try to talk more fun stuff instead of all nitty gritty, or things
Right.
like that. And that plus her marketing effort for us is, for those of you who don't know, any video, any sound snippet, any social media, anything that comes from her, because I have zero idea how to do it. She asked me not long ago, "Hey, did you see the video I put on for?" I think she called it a reel, and I said nope. She said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Because I got a red dot that said it was there, but I couldn't figure out how to watch it because I had to change accounts or something." Um, yeah. Anyway, she's awesome, and I think
Yeah,
we should give
she
her
is awesome.
flowers.
Yeah, I mean, I was right thinking about all the different titles that she has. There are like nine. Like she's done so much without even, I think, without even necessarily realizing all the help that she's been providing and giving and support to you to be able to do this too. Let's not, forget that. So I'm so happy and that she agreed to be such a big part of this to help it become what it is.
I don't
So
know if
thank
she
you,
I don't know
Kristen.
if she ever said, "Yes, I agree to do all of this." Instead, her personality is just, and she's very supportive of people that she cares about, and I think it's just another example that she's willing to do whatever it takes if she believes in something. And so, in that regard, I don't think she ever said, "Yes, I agree to do 9 million things," but she also has yet to say no, or we've not even had to ask questions. She just steps up and says, "Here, I'm going to do this," and
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway,
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you, Kirsten. Along that line, actually, can I ask you a question?
yeah.
So I was thinking because you are a parent of a child with autism, and I don't know the particulars necessarily of when you received that diagnosis and how old PJ was, but I was thinking about this was at the Autism Exchange, and back when I started doing this back in the mid 90s, believe it or not, there was very little known. My degree is in education. And so when I was learning about special ed, autism was 1 in 10,000, and that was in the late 80s. So, I mean, it was 1 in 10,000 incidents. And so we didn't really spend a lot of time talking about it because, presumably students who had that diagnosis were in an institution somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then in the 90s, there was this huge sort of explosion of kids being diagnosed, and the kids were in schools. They weren't sort of placed in a separate school or placement or institution. So their kids were in school, and I think that, and someone said recently that if you see one kid with autism, you've seen one kid with autism,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's 100% true. Over the years, we've gone from 1 in 10,000, not even having the internet basically, and then having the internet and having people talk more about it, see more of it, have it in classrooms and in schools, and now it's everywhere. There are all kinds of agencies and all kinds of things. But there are a few things that I think remain constant amongst all things that have changed. And I wanted to ask you, when you think about PJ, or when you talk to parents, and a parent could ask you, really earnestly, what is autism? How do you describe that for that particular parent? Because, like every parent that you talk to is a little bit different in what they're going to be able to receive and what they're ready to receive, and whatever sort of, language that they speak. So, how do you define autism for your families, and how did you define it for yourself, or how was it explained to you?
Very good question. it, it depends, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of hinted at that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it depends on if someone is asking. I think this is another picture of understanding who you're talking to and where they are. And some people want like a scientific overload. Some people want to know about the brain and the neurological systems and how this all comes to be. And in those cases, I might reference things about studies that have been done on brains of people with autism and the flow of fluid through certain parts of the brain and what lights up and the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And then on the total other end of that spectrum, no pun intended, is actually, and I don't know if this is going to be frowned upon by you or not, but I don't care. It's what I do. So you can reprimand me, you can reprimand me, but I'm probably not going to change it. A really good friend of mine is an optometrist, but also one of very very few Kentucky board certified vision therapists. So he has a lot of cool stuff in vision therapy, and he probably should be a guest someday. But anyway, he told me one time when I first met him, I was super young and fresh into the field, and he said, "Have you ever heard of AQR?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, because you're young, you're new in the field, you think you're supposed to know
Yeah.
everything. You can't say I don't know what you're talking about." And
Right.
he had referred somebody to me, actually, I think, and he thought I could help him, and he told me that their diagnosis was AQR, and I'm like, okay, got you, doc, no problem, I got it, I'm on it. And I didn't know what it was. Met the kid. Fast forward several months, and doc, he reached back out to me on them, and he said, so what do you think about the AQR diagnosis? And I said, I'll be honest, I don't know what it is, because at this point I was more humble. He said, AQR ain't quite right. So, true story. And really, without a negative connotation at all, that is an explanation to some people, especially a humorist,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who enjoys
Yeah.
fun and doesn't get offended by, you know, I feel like if I
Right.
say to the right person, PJ AQR, I mean, and it's true, because in some ways he just ain't quite right. He likes to jump off the fridge instead of jump on the trampoline. That ain't quite right. Um,
Right.
so that's another way, I think, to answer the question. If someone were to ask
Yeah.
me, what is
Yeah.
autism? And then somewhere in the middle, I might say a person with autism. I usually will rattle off the diagnostic criteria and say, just because you can check that box doesn't mean you have autism. Just because you have autism doesn't mean you'll check all the boxes. And some things are completely unrelated to autism, but might look just like it. So I tell
Yeah.
them, in general, it's a mix of both fun, AQR, and science, in saying, often speech delays, some social reciprocity issues. Yeah, you hear about eye contact and stimming and all those things, and they're real. I mean, those exist, but not all children, like you said, you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Not everybody looks the same way, and so
Yeah.
I do explain, maybe overly literally, that you're going to see weird behavior a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Things that society might look at and say that's strange. Um, oh well, I mean, and that's when you really got to get into the nitty gritty of who cares what people think. It's my home, my country. You don't like it, leave.
Right.
That's the way
Right.
I say it. You and your family certainly don't say you don't like it, leave. But I think as a parent of a child with autism, you have to put on that armor to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't adopt that attitude, which Kirsten does much more gracefully than I do, but if you don't adopt that attitude, that if you don't like my home, my country, there's the door. That doesn't mean I don't love you, care about you, and you're welcome back. But if you think that this is the place to come and momsplain, remember that throwback.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing that back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Mm-hmm.
welcome. Um, or if you want to
Yeah.
judge, or if you want to offer unsolicited advice on everything we do, then we have too much going on to handle that. And so you
Yeah.
have to carry that armor. Anyway, very, very long
Yeah.
answer. Sorry. But
No, no, it's a great answer. And it gets to the heart of sort of I think encapsulates what I was thinking while you were talking, is that in so many ways it comes down to individualizing the way that you um, um, the way that you respond to the person you're talking to who asked you a question, right? Like they're asking you a question and they want some information or whatnot. And the way that you respond to them is really the respecting who they are and how you respond to it. And I think that's so key. It's really almost like, speaking it in their language. And I'm not talking about sort of like, a different, Spanish or French or something, but just the language and the culture of that person. So, and it's a dance, right? Because you have who you are and what you know, and then you have a person who's asking you and, humbly, probably with a little bit of fear and a little bit of other things going on. And so you need to meet ideally you meet that person where they are and give them what they need in a way that they can hear it and understand it. And I'm going to go back to so many of our guests, and especially Dr. Groves and Kirsten, very much so, and Stacy, that's what they're doing. It's like they're bridging that gap of language to communicate with somebody. And I was thinking of this because I was talking to somebody recently about I used to teach social skills and have social skills groups for kids on the spectrum, and a lot of times, I would be asked, what is this whole social skills situation look like, and what does it mean? Is it really just eye contact and proximity and all these things? And I said, and you're going to see why this is one of my analogies in a minute, Michael, given our previous conversation about pens and writing instruments.
Uh-huh.
But I said it's sort of the difference between a child knowing the words and then understanding the font. You know how when you go out in the world and you see a font and you're like, oh, that's kind of fancy because it's written in a script, or that's, sort of school because it's written or academic because it's written a certain way, or really fancy, whatever. And I feel like that's kind of how I think about things sometimes for our kids, is that they're reading the words, they understand them, the sort of the words and the message, but the tone or the font of it, that's the part that they struggle with, that allows them to be able to fully participate. I guess that would be the AQR in some ways.
Yeah.
Of, it's like the message is there. I've got that. I understand. I know the words, but what you do with those words and the tone, if that somebody's, that if you come home and if Kirsten has a certain tone, she's really happy to tell you something, or she's really frustrated about something or angry, like, that it's those kinds of things that are piled onto the message. And all of those things are in many ways like nonverbal skills. That's 85% of the message. And so 85% of communication. So that's why I wanted to ask you about sort of defining and describing, and it fits hand in glove with just giving somebody the information that they're asking you for in a way that they can understand it and be comfortable with it to continue the conversation.
I agree. It's never linear. It's never black and white. Mm-hmm. It's never easy. And yes, what you're saying is right. You're trying to understand what the words say, but also in what font they are written. But then there are other components too, such as the stress level of a parent, or the level of fear for a parent, or doubt, or any of those things that come with it. And that's a whole conversation on its own, that I not just lived through, but am living through continually. I don't think it stops. But anyway, you also figure out where somebody's coming from, personally, not just in terms of explain autism to me, if that makes sense. Because sometimes somebody says explain autism to me because they, like I said, they want to understand the science and how does this happen, and we don't really fully know that, but we're working on it. And other times people say, what is autism? Because then they're afraid that what might happen next. What is my child's future? What can they accomplish? What can't they accomplish? And am I doing enough? So that's another layer that let's just talk about when somebody asks me in my work, what is autism? I try to understand, and I think that's kind of where I got the habit of being so transparent and somewhat laid back about it, because I have no problem saying to somebody when they say, what is autism? I'm like, well, I don't know. What do you want to know? Do you want to know the AQR side? Do you want to know the science side? And also, how are you handling this? Because you can't serve from an empty well. You have to invest in yourself and
Mm,
make sure you're taken care of so that you can better care for your child. And I think we just humbly ask that question, and then figure out where they are. There, like you're a really good example of this. There are people that have the skill of, and Dr. Grubbs too, figuring out where somebody is without straight up asking them. Um, it's
mm,
just my um, approach is to show up and just ask them, and then take it from there. But anyway, there's not a right or wrong. It's just it's easier for me to not have to think so much about extrapolating information. I can then spend that energy on helping, however I can help.
yeah, yeah. I think though you should give yourself credit because I think it works in the reverse too. I think people will seek out someone that they have a sense of who will give them an answer that they are looking for, you know. And sometimes people want to look, tell me the science. Other times people will say, I really just need somebody to hold my hand right now, or to sort of give me a sort of a hug about this and the way that we talk about it. You know, other people are very pragmatic in the answers that they're looking for, and so they ask somebody who will give them that kind of answer. So it's such a delicate dance to sort of just know where somebody is at and what they're looking for. And I think that's part of the art. I'm going to throw back to Stacy. Part of the art of and the privilege of sort of being in this world is that, you know, you sort of see people all, you know, where they're at, and then try to speak that language to, you know, provide some support or guidance or comfort, or just be next to them. I think sometimes it's just being next to somebody.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And that's where healthcare, this is again another conversation, but healthcare in our country right now, in our in America, not my home, my country, in America, is such that everything is so time based, and you know we have businesses to run and careers to complete and things like that. But it puts such an emphasis on how quickly can you get in, get the information, and get out. And for that reason, a lot of people are discouraged from taking the extra time to invest in that person. Can I give you I'm still circling back to your question about explaining autism, but can I give you a real example?
Oh, yeah, please.
A very good friend of mine, two very good friends of mine, they had a son who had some signs, had some, you know, flags that maybe would look into this a little bit. And they came to me and they were like, look, the pediatrician brought this up. And he, the father in particular, was struggling a lot, as did I with PJ. Fear, doubt, worry, a gut punch in a way for something that doesn't mean your head is falling off. And we know that these people are beautiful and perfect and will accomplish lots of things. You can't turn it off because you still grieve. It's like the Holland poem. Welcome to Holland. You have a plan. And then when that's taken away from you, it takes a while to realize that Holland's actually pretty great. Anyway, so
Yeah.
this dad, I'll never forget, we were sitting in his office and sat across from his desk, and we were talking about autism and what it might mean for his son. And I said, look, this is going to be cheesy, but let's just do it. Okay. Bear with me. He said, sure. I said, all right. So I wrote down the kid's name, or had him write it down on a sheet of paper. And I said, I'll just say Johnny. I said, I want you to tell me everything that you love about Johnny in a bullet list. Make a bullet, write something down. Single word's fine. And we went through, you know, funny, smart, terrible handwriting, took forever to potty train, all these things that quirky, all these things that sees the world in a different way than I could ever understand, notices things that I could never notice. And so we got done through that list, and I said, okay, let me see your paper. Took the paper, go to the top, and I put autistic on top of the name Johnny. And I said, so now we have Johnny with autism. Let's say, what can we take off of this list now that Johnny has this autism diagnosis? And the dad said, nothing. He is the same kid. Ding, ding, ding. He might need help.
Yeah.
He might need some help with stuff. That's cool. We're fine. Thankfully, there are people that can help. But your child doesn't change because you get a diagnosis. The things you love about them, the things they're great at, are going to be the same whether or not they have autism. So that was somewhat of a cheesy thing that I ended up using with multiple other people just because it worked. It clicked. At least it did in my mind and in this guy's mind.
I don't think that's cheesy at all. I love that idea. I love that idea. And I think I love that idea. Sort of, very concretely reaffirms like your child is all of these things. And that and I think just the idea of naming the things that you love, the things that you notice, the things that you appreciate, and putting that all in a box. It's sort of then I guess doesn't necessarily matter what's at the top of the top of the box or the name of the box. I guess, Michael, I love that. I don't think it's cheesy at all. I think that's a beautiful sort of conversation piece.
Well, it worked. I mean, it worked, and it wouldn't work for everybody. It worked for some people. That's
Right.
all good. We're good with it. Just if it has a chance of helping.
I think if I were a parent going through that and you presented that to me, I would be so happy I would spit.
Oh, oh, that's good, Jay. Wow, I
Did you
like
like
that.
that?
Uh huh. Yep.
I couldn't resist. I've been looking for a place to put that in, and I'm not even sure that landed there. Landed? You like that? I'm not even sure that landed well, but I couldn't resist. But no, and by the way, that was appropriate to say that I would be thrilled that somebody had taken the time to write something so thoughtful with me.
Well,
So,
figuring out
right.
what makes somebody tick is very difficult. You just
Mhm.
never know where they are. We're beating a dead horse here, but we don't know where they are and what they've been through and what they're scared of, and that's all right. I think it takes a special person to say, just let it out, vent, and I might not be able to help you. If I can't, I'm not going to send you out of here confused. I'm going to hold your hand until you get where you're going, and that is hard as pulling a hen's teeth.
I just can't. just yes, it is as difficult as pulling a hen's teeth. Okay, I have to ask you: do you make these up? Do you have a list? Are they just pulled from the recesses of your minds? Like, where are these coming from?
Uh, my dad.
Your dad. Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
an uncle or two. I think I told you
Okay.
before, if you don't learn to communicate that way in my household, well, the one I grew up
Hmm.
in, then you're confused all the time because it's
Okay.
there. I mean, we could dichotomize that. Wide is the thing, but it is like a Southern colloquialism habit,
Okay.
whereby
Right.
you take some old Appalachian saying and,
Mhm.
I mean, to a degree, you could say the same about "as the crow flies," straight line. You
True.
could,
True.
you've
Yep.
heard that. So I don't know. It's but it's so fun, and
Okay.
what I love about it is that when it's appropriate, like the hen's teeth was forced because you said spit, and then I'm like, oh, gotta go back and forth then. So then I planted that whole sentence just so I could end with hen pulling a hen's teeth. But uh, like a granite. Here's a good one. This is one of my favorites. Do you know what sawbriars are?
No,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
it's a plant. It's a weed that grows, and
Okay. Okay.
they're sharp and pointy, and they hurt. Um, Dad used to always say, "Grinning like a possum eating sawbriars." And at first, for a long time, I thought, okay, possums like sawbriars, and maybe he's happy because he's eating sawbriars. But then what really still cracks me up, obviously, is no, if you're chewing on briars, if you're chewing on briars, you're going to be opening your mouth, trying not to, and so you're going to look like you're grinning. So that, that's just that's one of my all-time favorites. Hey
I
man,
gotta remember that one. I really do.
it's like, hey, how do you feel about getting your new car, man? I'm grinning like a possum eating sawbriars.
Okay, that's fantastic. I gotta. Where's my pen? Like I'm writing that in my good pen, by the way. Sawbriars. Okay.
Yep. It's a good one.
Okay.
Anyway, to answer your question,
All
I
right.
had to learn to communicate that way if I wanted to understand what in the world people were saying around me. So,
Right.
that's
I
what
guess that's a language too, and but I love that language. I got to learn some of that. I'm gonna have to look up some sayings to get ready because it's fun, and I love every time you say something like that. I love it because it's very limbic. it sort of gets to something. And I, as you know, use way too many words. And so when you're talking and you use colloquialism like that, it's just like limbic. It's immediate. It's straightforward. You sort of get a feeling for what it is without even necessarily knowing it, specifically linguistically. See, I put too many words to it, but rather than just saying, grinning like a possum eating sawgrass. Yeah.
Sawbriars. Now,
Saltbriars. Sorry, saltbriars.
Sawbriars. What we have to work on next is your
Yeah.
Southern accent, because part of using these phrases is the accent with which you say them. So you can't say grinning like a possum eating sawbriars. You have to say, I was grinning like a possum eating sawbriars. Like you have
Yeah,
to.
that might be a hard stop for me right there.
You don't have to force it. You don't have to go full Matthew McConaughey, but
All right.
all right. So
Yeah.
another one that really, and then I'll stop with this, but another one is,
Okay.
if you're confused, you're like a mule staring at a new gate. A mule stands in front of a new gate. It used to be blue and now it's red, and the mule's just standing there like, what is that? Whoa.
Is it because they're smart enough to know that it's different and they're observing it, or because they don't know that it's the same idea? It's still a gate and they're stopped because of an inappropriate reason.
Janice, that's a good question. And next time I talk to a mule, I'll ask them. Here, do you want to see the magic of a perfect segue?
Yes, let's hear it.
All right. Or should I say, all right.
All right.
Matthew McConaughey. Movies. You told me this morning that you wanted to chat about some movies or shows or something, and like we always talk about, we have no plan, and so none of this I knew anything about until about 20 minutes ago. So
Yeah.
I thought I'd make it a little movie segue. So whatever it is you want to talk about movies, there's your shot. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. I don't think that's it either. Well, we're actually getting close to sort of bumping up against time for this particular episode, but we talked earlier about sort of the evolution of the diagnosis of autism, and especially in the media and TV, and actually more, I think it was movies before it was TV. And, now I think we are seeing it much more commonly in the culture. And so I was just wondering if you had some compare and contrast movies or TV shows about how autism was sort of seen at a certain time, way back when, like a Rain Man sort of thing, versus how it's represented now in the TV shows now. Like, I think there's one like Autism Finding Love, and like there's reality TV shows. So everything from Rain Man to current day, where there are reality shows with people with autism, and I think that's a loaded. I'm not here to sort of say that's good or bad or judge it. I'm not saying that at all. What I just wanted to ask you about is sort of the evolution of that, and what your thoughts are about that.
My first thought is, and I'm shooting from the hip, so this is not with any malice whatsoever. Anything I say, please don't hear bad intention. But I do think that most of the time autism in, we'll just say media, is presented at a level. Diagnostically, there are levels 1, 2, and 3 for autism. And contrary to popular belief, people think it's a measure of cognition, or like what you're cognitively able to do. That's incorrect. It's usually based on, or not usually, it is based upon, the diagnostic criteria is based on the number of supports that you may need. So they're basically, whoever does an evaluation, hopefully it's a good one, they're going to say, oh, you're 3 diagnostically because you might need this, and this. Versus if you're level 1, then, oh, you might need this. So it's one thing versus 20 things. And so that's, anyway, don't get me started on the Asperger's thing, because just like we've talked about before, when people go, I'm just so OCD, and they really don't know what OCD is. Asperger's is often used there too. But anyway, back to the topic. That was a speedboat, not a cruise ship right there.
Right. Oh, I
the
was still excited that I personally could have used shooting from the hip. But anyway, go ahead. Like that's what. But yeah,
we got to
that's
work on your
probably
accent.
such a generic one that it doesn't even matter anymore. But I just was, had like a slight grin. I'm like, I could use that one next time. That's
We got to
on my
work. We have
own
to
well
work on
of
your
that. Yeah.
accent. Your accent. We have to work on your accent for that. Like
Why?
because you shooting from the hip. That's what we got to say. Shooting from the hip.
No, you're shooting from the hip.
Yeah, you're so articulate. Like I can understand you. Half the time, my dad. Oh, I have one uncle, and I love him with all my heart. I have one uncle that says something. I'm like, what in the world did you just say? Like it didn't even make sense. Even if he says hi, good morning, it's like morning. I know. It's like what? Okay. Anyway, back to the thing. Speedboat. Um, so often in media, I believe that you see, at least with the media that I have seen, you see level one. You see what people would may or may not still call Asperger's, where it's the quirky, super, extremely smart. I told you earlier that I saw a headline that there's an 11-year-old girl with a master's degree with aspirations to work at NASA. I think that's often what you
Mhm.
see in movies, and Rain Man, or Good Will Hunting.
Mhm.
You see that remarkable ability. You might have social issues and some sensory things, but you see that remarkable ability to solve the Pythagorean theorem in 3 seconds without paper. You see that a lot. Young Sheldon, the TV show, well, what's the other? Big Bang Theory. You see that a
Mhm.
lot. It's like this ultra smart, quirky person who otherwise doesn't struggle much, or at least that's the picture that they put out. Which
Right.
whole different conversation about filtering and masking and hiding things that are difficult for the sake of putting on a good face. But I feel like that's the majority of mass media, and something that it's not bad. It's just that it, it skips over the fact that there's a whole different world, and what about Sheldon and Big Bang Theory's parents? What was it like when he was 5? What were the hard things and how did it look? And then I would say you mentioned reality shows. Love on the Spectrum is one, and I've not watched
Mhm.
a whole lot of it. The people that I work with watch it a lot, for many reasons. I think the biggest reason is that they know what they know in their everyday work, and then they're kind of looking at somebody without that healthcare focus. And uh,
Yeah.
anyway, so I think shows like that might be a little more clear than a fictitious character that someone put out there with Rain Man. Um, so I think you probably can see a little more of the real struggles that happen, and
Mhm.
that there are people who might not be rocket scientists, and that's okay. They're still wonderful, beautiful people. So in general, I don't know that I've noticed much of a change in the presentation of autism in movies and TV. Rather, almost a consistency that we kind of stay on the same level of autism presentation.
Okay. Interesting.
But I guess who would want to watch a
Interesting.
show about you know PJ hitting his head on the floor? Like who would want to watch a TV show where that's all, that's the show? I mean, so there's a creative
Yeah.
part that I think that these writers are trying to accomplish, and then there's a fine line between how much light can we make of autism before we cross that line.
Right.
Because they're people and they're not animals in a zoo. They're not to be examined and enjoyed by other people strictly. Like they are people.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not
I think
against it.
I. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I'm definitely not against it being in TV and
Right.
movies. It just, I think you just have to be careful about, yeah, you have to be aware, not even careful, just be aware that maybe somebody somewhere does feel like they're put on a stage and examined for having autism because Sheldon's funny in The Big Bang Theory.
Right. Right. I think um, I agree with you on what you're saying for sure, and I'm a little uncomfortable sometimes watching some of the shows because I feel a bit like voyeuristic. It feels a bit voyeuristic, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and I think as I've thought about it, I think it's because for so many years I know or have had the opportunity to see such a bigger system of that student or that child or that person, you know, that the family, the extended family, the school, the community. So you see all the things that go into, you know, the support for that person. And so I think sometimes the shows don't have all that. But again, you know, there are so many shows about neurotypical people that don't necessarily show all that either.
Right.
I'm so conflicted with that, because I feel like, well, wait a second, what about this? Or if they have the family and I'm looking at the mom, I'm like, well, how did she get to where she is to be able to respond or react or think this way? And what is that to? And what about the stress, you know, potentially on a marriage or siblings? And what does that look like? And how did that evolve? So there's like so much that goes into whatever moment in time that show or that movie is highlighting, that it just feels a bit, like I said, voyeuristic to me, and a bit sort of like we're missing so much context. But I guess that's not really the point of the show. That's just me saying, you know, wait, there's so much more. There's, you know, it's so much richer and deeper. And I don't want to forget all of that too. I don't want to forget any of those pieces or minimize them in any way. So
yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
I think we're on the same page. It's fine. Yeah. It's not my world and not my decision to make. And there are things that I've watched before that I think are funny and interesting and captivating. There's a Temple Grandin. If you don't know, I know you do, but if listeners don't know who Temple Grandin is, person with autism, wildly successful, very difficult start because of the era in which she grew up, and thankfully had a very good mother who did wonderful things for her and taught her some hard lessons and set some boundaries. But anyway, there are a couple of movies and many books that I would suggest if you want to see a more realistic picture of autism. I met Temple Grandin at the World Autism Conference, and she was doing a book signing later, and I was going to go buy a book and have her sign it and get to meet her and kind of take a picture with her. And because she's the poster child for that transition from old school autism knowledge to new school. And
yes,
I think she was like 6 years old when she started talking, 5 or 6 years old. And now she has PhD and works very well in the cattle industry. Anyway, so I go to the bathroom during this event, and she's on the phone in the hallway, like pacing back and forth, talking on the phone. And so I just hovered. This is really bad of me, but I just hovered. I stood there and waited and kind of glanced over and waited. Finally, she hangs up the phone and she walks over to me, and I can't begin to emulate her voice, but it's very distinct. But real life, she walked right up to me. "Can I help you?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. I just was really excited to meet you." "Okay, well, come buy a book and I'll talk to you." I said, "Okay, I'll see you in a little bit. Sorry, I was just a big fanboy." Anyway, so. And we gotta go. In the middle of her speech, when she was giving her talk, she stopped. I didn't hear anything. She just stopped mid sentence, and she turned around and she looked back to the back of the stage, and she said, "Could somebody please stop making that noise back there?" Nobody stopped. She had her microphone on her head, so she walked back there, and there was somebody working on like a pop machine or something, and it was making noise. And she just like very bluntly was like, "I'm giving a lecture out there. Could you please stop making this noise right now? It's very distracting to me." And all of us were hearing it on the screen. It was so cool. Anyway, do you want to see a real, like a very, very, because you meet one person with autism, you met one person with autism, I know. But if you want to see a much more realistic view in the movies or in writing, then I would suggest just about anything Temple Grandin has endorsed.
Yeah, agree.
So, anyway, we need to go down
she's
that.
Amazing.
Yeah, super cool.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
You got any Southern colloquialisms you want to throw at me?
Hang
on. Ready, aim, fire.
Ready. Is that Southern?
No, because the Southern one is ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, I'm new to North Carolina, and I think that North Carolina is not quite the North, like not quite the Mid-Atlantic, and it's not quite the South. And so I think somewhere there's like a tectonic plate that I live north of. So I feel like within the states, I identify more with the Mid-Atlantic because I didn't grow up here, so I don't have a Southern accent, and I don't have some of the mannerisms. I don't like sweet tea.
How about collard greens?
Collard. I like them in like when I juice, with like spinach and collard greens, but
Enough said.
I don't think I would eat them.
Enough said.
Is that like
You know how Southerners make collard greens? They scoop over out of a mason jar, and I have one in my fridge. That when you make bacon, you pour that grease into a mason jar and stick it in the fridge. When we eat collards, we scoop out about 3 tablespoons of hog lard, put it in the pan, and then fry up some collard greens on top of it.
Okay, you lost me at hog lard, but I'm a vegetarian and I can't. Although I have to say that when I was growing up, my mom and dad made bacon, and then they would keep the grease and pour it in like a coffee jar or coffee can. And then they would use that when they fried up eggs or something. And it smelled amazing. I got to say, like, even to this day, that smell of the bacon grease, with eggs and things, it does smell really good. But no, my collard greens go in juice. And I buy the bacon that goes on the microwave on a paper towel.
That's cool. It's fine. You know what? It's just so different than what I know. Hog lard and bacon grease are the same thing. It's just a more fun way to say it.
Okay.
Hog lard.
Hog lard. Okay, hog lard. Okay, I got it.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Janice and I are very thankful for your continued listenership. We always want to welcome feedback. We always want to have you guys ask us questions. I would really wish you would talk about this on your next episode, or here's a guest I think would really be good. We want to hear that stuff. So please email that to us.
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Our email address is info.autismexchange@gmail.com, and please don't hesitate or reach out, private message on social media, however you want to do it. Let us know, because that's what Janice and I want to do. We want to have fun by helping you guys have fun, and whatever that means for you. So thanks again for listening. This is the Autism Exchange podcast, where we want to communicate and collaborate. Our goal again is strictly just to share experiences by having conversations that help bring everybody together, and you can glean things away afterward that would really help me in my life. So again, Autism Exchange podcast, find us on wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. That is Apple Podcasts, that's Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Spotify, all of them. Find us, like, subscribe, share. We really appreciate you guys. For Janice Krempa, I'm Michael Coldiron. This has been the Autism Exchange podcast.
Hi. Michael, is spit shine, like you spit shine your shoes, is that one?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. It is.
But not really.
Well, it's just not one that I use.
Okay. All right, yeah. In fairness, it's been a while for me too. I don't think I've ever spit shined my shoes, but
well,
I was just trying to throw one out for you.
This would be the third time you've worked with the word spit in this episode. So maybe we need to get you onto something else.
That is the magic of working with you.
Yeah. So toilet paper, spit, beef jerky, and this is in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and hog lard. So
hog lard, yeah.
Forget that one.
More on those. All right, Janice.
Right.
Have a great one. I will talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.